Thank you all for coming. It's great to see some familiar faces, some neighbors, some friends, some newbies. What a great time. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here today. I'm a little bit nervous too. COS started about 10 years ago, Convention of States. Started with a couple of people, Mark Meckler and Michael Ferris. And their whole concept is based on Article 5 of the Constitution. Article 5 of the Constitution gives the power back to the people. The country was inserted actually in the Constitution right near the end of the signing of the Constitution. George Mason spoke up and said, we need some controls, because right now it looks like the federal government has too much power. So Article 5 stated succinctly that it's the right of the people. Should that happen, the government get too much power, they can form a convention of states through their legislators and call a convention of states and actually propose amendments to the Constitution. So that's kind of the summary of Article 5. To make it simple, Michael's going to help me here with a PowerPoint presentation. We'd like to go through that. I'll walk through you with it. We have three fantastic speakers, local leaders in our communities from the districts that I represent as regional captain, districts 31 through 35 on the coast there. So they're here. So we're going to have a few of them say what COS means to them at the same time. At the end, I'd like to wait all questions or anything to the end so we can get to the presentation. And I'm sure when you see the presentation, you'll get a better understanding of what Article 5 is and what we're trying to do here. Three of the main problems that we see that are going on now, as you've probably noticed, is three topics. Overspending, government overspending, career politicians, how about term limits? Federal overreach. The federal government has too much power. The way it's written, and even in Article 5 of the whole Constitution, was designed to the people to be in control through their legislators. So that's what we're going to address. Talk about fiscal responsibility. The debt now is 31 trillion. Federal spending is on a rampant. It's in the paper every day. We're deeper and deeper in debt. Regardless of who's in office, right? Oh, we jumped to career politicians. That's good. I was going to say just before that, we keep spending and spending. And there's things like Medicare may be depleted in 10 years, Social Security in a few years. So the next topic is the career politicians. There's a few from our legislative federal government, and these are the years that they've been in office. So term limits is definitely is in our presentation for Convention of States. And it'll be one of the three resolutions in the document that's presented to each state. It tells about I'll get there, don't worry. The politicians are entrenched, so they're spending too much time. So term limits will be it. Thank you, Michael. Regulation without end. Federal overreach is monstrous. You know, the states don't have very much to say at all anymore. They reach everywhere, federal overreach. So it's in the schools, it's in a lot of every form of government regulation. So we need to get the power back to the states.
People like us, people that are frustrated with Washington, D.C., often say, well, they don't follow the Constitution anyway. Not true. They follow the wrong one. They're following the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court, rather than the Constitution as written.
This, taking out of my pocket, is a pocket Constitution. 4,000 words in the original document, 4,400 words. If you count the amendments, we're talking about 7,000 words. But here is the Constitution in force today. This is 3,000 pages of Supreme Court rulings showing what every ruling has done to the original words. This isn't going to get any smaller. In fact, every time they publish this document, they leave a bunch of blank pages at the back for additional rulings that they know are coming. Every page in this document means a grant of power to the federal government. Understand that this is the Constitution in operation today. And unless we change it, unless we make its wording crystal clear, we're going to continue to operate under this document forever and ever until the whole house of cards comes falling down.
This is a sample of the number of pages that are in that new. It shows the exaggeration of the paper that's being stacked up with all the government bills and things that they have passed that have really bogged down with a lot of initials, a lot of departments, a lot of heavy burden of divisions of the government. So the solution that we have is follow what the founders wrote in Article 5. In Article 5, I'll give you a little rundown on that. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on application of the legislators of 2/3 of the states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution when ratified by the legislators of 3/4 of the several states. So our plan is to use Article 5 for exactly the purpose as the founders envisioned, right? Follow what they wrote. Propose amendments to the Constitution that limit the power of the government.
Imagine you were in this room. We're in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the very place where the Constitution was done and the Declaration of Independence. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach, here with Mark Meckler. And Mark, if you had been in this room when it happened, when the Constitution was created, and George Mason stands up at the very end to say, hey guys, wait a minute, we messed up, we got a real problem here, what would you do?
I'd have probably been irritated. Sit down.
You're the grumpy, right?
Yeah,
They're like, let's go home.
It's 2 days. September 15, 1787, 2 days before the end of convention. You guys have heard the story. It's hot in here.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have HVAC back then, so it's hot. The windows are boarded up. They're all irritated by now. They want to go home. Mason stands to address the men, and he says, we have a terrible problem with the document we've drafted.
I can hear the groans now.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh,
Here we go
George again.
Yeah.
And he says, we've given the power to the federal government to propose amendments should they deem them necessary, but we've not given the same power to the people acting through the states.
Now I got to stop you there. Back up. They've been here for all those weeks to create a federal government. They've redesigned the whole thing. The Constitution is designed. Here's our 3 branches of government. Here's what states can do. Here's what federal government can do. They created all of that. And he's saying, wait a minute, we have a problem.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lost history in there. Actually, the very first draft that went out to the working committees contained this power. The states had the power.
I didn't know that.
The federal government didn't, actually. And when it came back, somehow it had been reversed. And so he notices this at the last minute, literally brings this problem up. Everybody groans. We think we don't have the videotape, right? Yeah. But then he asks a question that I think is the real question, and this question resonates across the ages. He says, are we so naive that we believe that a federal government that becomes a tyranny will ever propose amendments to restrain its own tyranny?
Now wait, let me put that in country boy language. I'm a country boy. That means if the federal government ever gets out of control, do we really think the very people that stole power, that took it without permission, will just give it back? We'll just hand it off to us?
You know, whenever I tell this story in a hall or in a meeting somewhere, people laugh.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what they did. You know, we don't have a recording. We can kind of tell. Madison's notes in that point, they say nin com. It's Latin for no comment, essentially. That's an abbreviation. No debate. These guys debated everything.
That's the 1787 version of mic drop.
Exactly.
No,
I call it the forehead slap. Like everybody just went, oh my gosh,
we missed that.
I can't believe we missed that. And so Eldridge Gary proposes the second part of Article 5 gives the states, 2/3 of them, the power to call and convene a convention of states for proposing amendments. Then the vote's taken. I think this part's incredible. Imagine them in this room, right? Ready to go home. It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Absolutely. So it was so obvious to them that we had to give this power to the people acting through the states, that there's no debate, and it's unanimously adopted.
Now let's just summarize it real quick. So they created the Constitution, they created the three branches of government, they created all these different levels of accountability, and they said, we didn't solve everything. In the future there will be issues, this will need to be amended. Congress can propose amendments and send it back to the states, and they ratify it. And what George Mason changed, what they actually put in there at the end is the states can propose amendments. And propose amendments, and then it goes back to all the states to be ratified. And unanimously, they said, that's a good idea. We need that second mechanism.
Yeah, important to remember what that means is they gave the ultimate power not to the federal government, not to Washington, D.C., but to
Mason.
I'm here live in
Liberty's Voice, Levin TV.
What Article 5 gives us is the ability to change the narrative and to ask people the question, should you decide or should Washington, D.C. decide? And I can tell you, I ask that question all over the country, and when I ask it to people on the left or people on the right, I get the same answer. They want to decide in their own community. They don't like Washington, D.C. deciding. To me, that's really what Article 5 is all about.
So that's a pretty good summary from the leaders. And Article 5, the citizens asked the sponsors, asked the legislators to support the Constitution and support what we the people want. So we the people lead in this case. And one of the problems of the government today is the local people, even in our little local community. We gotta find out what's going on. Speak up at the school boards. Do things like that. I should really describe what happened with Article 5, right? How it's passed. Goes to the state legislators. The 6 steps to success, right? Sorry, folks, I'm a little nervous and a little out of sorts here, but we'll get it right. So when the first steps, people ask the legislators to sponsor and support the Constitution, right? The people lead. They get out there and get their legislators and make it happen. And we've done that quite a lot here in D34 and also throughout our districts. We get to meet the legislators, we speak to them. We were at the committee delegations, legislative delegations this past week. So it's the people have to speak. So each state legislator in the House and Senate has to pass through the filed and passed through each legislator, and then it's voted on by both parties, by both the Senate and the resolution to get passed. And we need 34 states to pass. So 34 states, we have 19 to date. We have another dozen or so. 6 are in committee, 6 are in either House of the Senate or House of Representatives in each state. So we're really on target to get to 34 states. So it's happening all around the country. That's why we're here today. That's why I get excited about what I'm doing. A little nervous about speaking, but I'm still really excited about being here and seeing you folks and what we're doing in our communities. So what happens then is after the amendments are proposed, they each, I'll jump ahead a little bit, but when 34 states pass the resolution, then you have to send the delegates to the convention, right? So each little community, each state sends a delegate to represent them as commissioners, so to speak, of their state. The states can send as many delegates as they choose, but each state only gets 1 vote. So then the delegates, they propose, debate, vote on the amendments, and limit the language of the resolution. So that's why the 3 amendments that we propose are focused on the things that we mentioned before. So it doesn't get out of control. There's always talks about out of control convention and all that. There's no way to get out of control because you have 34 states that agreed through their legislators. We the people spoke. So the people are the ones that decided. It's not going to go wrong because they're all talking about the same three things, right? Talking about federal overreach, term limits, and maybe a balanced budget. Wouldn't that be nice? So the amendments are passed by the majority of the state legislators. Then it goes to yet another vote because you need 38 states to approve the resolution. So now they need to be ratified by 38. So even we get to that point, it's still we the people. It's still 38 states. That leaves only, what, 13 to stop any bad amendment that could go in. So I keep saying we the people because that's what this is all about. It's about federal overreach and getting the power back to the states where it belongs. And that's really what Convention of States is all about. After the Constitution Amendment, what we got next, Mike? Our strategy. So our resolution, our grassroots resolution, is to build an army of self-governing activists. And I mentioned before about our progress. We already have 19 states. But more importantly today is to get you folks interested in helping us in our drive here. And I'm lucky that I have some great people under me in district captains, and we have a few great speakers here that support us in the neighborhoods that we're in, all from Brevard County and all the way down to we're from Merritt Island down to Vero Beach. So the volunteer leadership is in all states. We have over 5 million volunteers and supporters, and over 17,000 district captains. District captain, I mention that because that's really an important position in Convention of States. It's a captain of each district to bring in volunteers to do various jobs that we need, help that we need. And it could be, it doesn't require a lot of expertise. It requires just the desire and the passion to do something for your country. We have people that write letters, various different jobs, photography, whatever. They have a passion just to help save our country, because that's what we're about. Getting our country back for the people. So please consider today, if you haven't signed a petition, sign our petition and become a volunteer, because we need help. We need help to get the rest of the states. We're always helping and supporting through various entities, our telepatriot calls, to get the other states involved. And it's working. It's working. You know, we have 3,800 volunteer telepatriot speakers around the country. Here's an example of how it's working, right? The stars indicate the states that have passed already, the 19 states. And you can see the white stars are passed in the chamber or committee. And the past committee hearing, 30 states. So it's quite extensively under a lot of people's face, let's say, right? It's happening. So we're convinced, and we know that as long as the people keep wanting to get the power back, it will happen. Here's some of our supporters. Mark Levin, who is a pretty national speaker, and he's a great supporter of Convention of States. He was even recently at our summit. We had a summit in October. Over 600 people from all over the country joined us at a summit. He was a head speaker at the Summit for Convention of States. What a thing to see, all these people come from all over the country. You know, not only just in our room, people from our room like this, but every state, and coming with excitement and seeing that something is really happening, that the people are speaking. James Dobson, he's another great supporter. And these people are, constitutionalists. They know the government in and out, and they really know that we're in a state of trouble. We need to do something. We need to decide. Let the people decide. That's what it's about. Tom Coburn, may rest in peace. He was a real supporter, a famous Convention of States supporter way back in the day, and he did a lot going around the country with Mark Meckler and with Michael Harris. So, like I said before, if you haven't signed a petition, get involved. Sign the petition. The petition goes right to your legislators, no matter what state or county you're in. If you're from Ohio visiting, you sign it. It goes right to in our system to the legislators there to show that you support Convention of States. So it doesn't matter where you live. Become a volunteer activist. We have 5 district captains around the room here. If you're interested, we can get you in the activist role real quick. Okay, just go to conventionofstates.com. It's real easy. You can do it here on paper like this, but you can also go online, conventionofstates.com, and sign in and answer a few survey questions inside the website. Inside the website is conventionofstates.com, and you can get to the resources where it says volunteering, and they'll give some choices. You take a little survey, answer 9 survey questions, click that you want to be a volunteer, and we'll take it from there. We have a fantastic website with all the resources of what's going on, not only locally, but all over the country with Convention of States. At any day or moment, there's total communication, and it's all interconnected. So, better yet, step up to be a district captain. District captain, like I said before, is the main leader in each of the districts. We are lucky to have most of ours filled. We need one for D35, actually, west of here, and west of Vero, and almost up to Orlando. So it's a big area, but we're looking for people to lead in that area.
All of us at the Convention of States Project truly believe freedom is worth fighting for. That's why we are executing a strategy that uses the Constitution to restore America. We believe the key to our success is creating and mobilizing a grassroots army at the state level. And the most critical member of this grassroots army is the district captain. We need a district captain in each of the 5,000 state house districts nationwide. As a district captain, you're on the front line in the fight for liberty. You'll be connecting Convention of States supporters in your local area, partnering with your state director to organize local town halls, meetings, and petition drives, and mobilizing local activists to have their voices heard at your state legislature. We will give you all the tools you will need and proudly stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we recruit, train, mobilize, and engage the largest grassroots army in the history of the United States. So be a part of the movement that refuses to let liberty die and stands up for our children and their future. Welcome aboard.
Okay, next on the agenda, I'd like to hear from a few of our, like you guys to hear from a few of our supporters. Penny Zellman, she's our first new district captain, fairly new from District 33.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I am so blessed to be here with you. In fact, I've waited my entire life to be here with you. And people are, why did I wait so long? Well, like many people, it was my career. You know, I was blessed. I have had a wonderful history of my career. I started out as a scuba instructor. I went from an amazing underwater world to surfacing in destinations as working on cruise lines and luxury cruise lines and visiting destinations all around the world. I was a shore excursion manager, so my job on the ships, which I lived on for 10 years, was to find out about the different destinations and people that lived there. And living on a ship, I can tell you, is like being in a mini United Nations with the different ethnicities and the languages and cultures, not only on board, but also in the different destinations. And it gave me time to realize just how special the United States is. Our nation is our nation under God, and it is the best place on the planet. Yeah. So I, like many people, we went on with our work and our life, and we, let somebody else worry about fixing our nation. And so all I did was I voted, but that's not been enough. And as we can see, our vote seems to be worth less and less each time it comes around. So I needed to take action. I left the cruise lines and started working in South Florida for the cruise line industry and the offices there. And I was busy all the time. And again, I could see things happening and the corruption starting to overwhelm our nation. And of course, I groaned and I growled and I did everything other than getting up and taking action. We are all great at moaning and groaning and telling everybody what's wrong. But I was too busy with my career and stuff to get up and take action. Well, fortunately, I retired. Okay? Fortunately, I made it to retirement. And that gave me the opportunity now to be here with you. And that is the most important thing. The thing about sitting back and just letting somebody else take charge, nothing really gets done. And I have this feeling of hopelessness, because you see what's happening around us. And unless we get up and do something, it's going to continue to get worse and worse. I am so encouraged now, and I have to thank Chuck for bringing me in as a district captain, because I am more encouraged now about saving our nation than I've ever been in my entire life. So this is the moment. This is the time that we have. The Convention of States, Article 5, was written for this time. Exactly this time in history. This is our 1776. This is our time to get up and take action. We can't sit back any longer and wait for somebody else to do it, because it's not going to get done. We have to take action ourselves. And if you'll join us in this grassroots army so that we can call the Convention of States through Article 5, so we can fix the breaks, the big breaks, the three big breaks: term limits, fiscal responsibility, and federal overreach. Even the ATF, last week, they're getting ready to make criminals out of millions of Americans because they're going to ban arm braces. Okay? Even though they said not 6 months ago, arm braces were okay. Well, I happen to own one of these weapons. I don't want to be a criminal. In 120 days, they're getting ready to make criminals out of millions of Americans. Law-abiding Americans. Well, you know, the definition of criminals, those are the guys who aren't going to turn in their weapons. Okay? They're not going to follow the laws. Law-abiding citizens are going to be the new felons. We have to end what's happening with this federal overreach. So I hope that you guys will sign the petition. And you know what? One other thing. We are so blessed to be right here in Florida right now, because we are the vacation spot and the snowbird destination for the rest of the country. We all know somebody in these states who haven't passed the resolution yet, who haven't gone through Congress. We need to get the word out. We need to call them. We need to give them the website, tell them to please go on, sign the petition, read the information, go to the Convention of States University. Just look at all the resources we have there. This time, really, this is our time. This is our time in history, and Article 5 was written exactly for today. And I, again, am so blessed to be here before you. Thank you so much for showing up, and God bless America.
Boy, it's good to be a regional captain with a good speaker behind you. Wow. Next, I'd like to present Troy Darling, our legislative liaison for all our districts. So nominated.
It's not often you get to follow a future felon, but thanks for having me. I'm blessed to be here. I'm Troy Darling. I'm the legislative liaison. The legislative liaison team doesn't work quite like the rest of it. Technically, I don't belong to a region. Technically, I don't belong to a district, apart from the fact that I live in one and I like to participate. And Vicki Buckley we've got here, she's my district captain. For those of you considering joining the district captaincy, please do it. If you haven't thought about it, please think about it. The value that she and that other district captains bring is absolutely fantastic. Instead, the legislative liaison team, we participate in absolutely anything and everything we can, and we relish the opportunities. Matter of fact, last week I got a chance to participate in 2 legislative delegation meetings, both Brevard County and here in Indian River. And I'd like to share with you guys a little bit of what I shared with them. So it was about 235 years ago, our state legislatures took time out from the disarray they were experiencing to create our form of constitutional republic. Does anybody know, according to them and according to our foundational documents, who is the rightful master of government? Just go ahead and throw your hand up. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, we actually had some conflicting answers. But I would argue that constitutionally, the individual, the citizen, we the people are the rightful master of government. Now I agree, God reigns over all and he's the ultimate authority. But when it comes to our system of government, we don't anticipate and we don't require that everybody adhere to the belief in that one God. I don't think we want to, and as a Christian and as a pastor, I would strongly urge anybody wanting to push legislation to that end to stop. It just doesn't work, and it's antithetical to the idea of a free society, and it's antithetical to the idea of accepting the free gift of salvation. But what's more is these legislatures that had to take that time away recognized the right and the authority of the people to alter or abolish, to establish governments. So I would say that under Article 5, they were creating a system by which we, the people, might jerk the chain of government when it gets out of hand. I think whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, and I certainly hope we've got some people on the left in this room today, this is not a Republican convention of states. It's not a conservative convention of states. It's a convention of states representing we, the people. The idea here is to reestablish the proper order of government. The idea that not only are we, the people, the rightful masters of government, but the states aren't some third-class citizen in the equation. The rights of the states as petri dishes of freedom, which is something that I can't remember who said it. Our system of government was intended for different styles of governance to occur within the 50 states. I don't think Floridians want to live like Californians. I don't think Virginians want to live like Montanans. The reality is the vast majority of power within our system of government, within our nation, should lie in the hands of we the people and the elected representatives nearest to us. Do we have the ability to go back to that, the map? Yes. I want everybody to take a close look at this map. Like I told the legislative delegations last week, this isn't something that maybe someday it might happen. When I look at this, less than 50% of each of those silver and bronze stars need to turn gold. Less than 50% of the states who are already currently in process are what's needed to come to a place where we have more than enough states to call it a convention. This is going to happen. It's nearly a foregone conclusion at this point. So I would ask you guys, I would ask the people who took the time out and that are engaged enough in their own governance to think about that. If this is going to happen, who's going to guide this process? Is it we the people?
Yes.
All right, then I'm going to have to ask something from you guys. This map up here is very, very important. But we live here. How much control do you have over your senator that goes to Washington, D.C.?
Not much.
Not much. That's an atrocity. Who do you have more power over? I'd argue that we have a lot more ability to impact the actions of our state legislators. What are we, the people, doing to guide our state legislature? If we can't take time out of our days to guide our state legislators, how on God's green earth do we expect to get the federal Congress to listen to us? So in addition to the idea of looking at joining Convention of States as a district captain, I ask that you take some time to consider what in your sphere, what group of people in your life can you gather together, not just to support Convention of States, although my passion lies here, but what can you do to reassert yourself as the rightful master of government? I think too long we've taken a break from what it means to be an active member of society. We've enjoyed our trappings of our modern day, and we, the people, have absolutely neglected our responsibilities. Duty is ours, results are God's. Most of us have heard that once or twice, and I think we've forgotten that. There's a quote from potentially my favorite writer of all time that says, "Duty is heavier than a mountain, death lighter than a feather." So I'd ask you guys, what duty, what mountain are you carrying on your shoulders? And as parents and grandparents, what's the legacy that we seek to leave our kids? You have far more power than you know. You have far more responsibility than you know. I ask that you would band together, whether in small groups or in large groups, whether it's left or right or center or a combination thereof, and that you'd reach across, ignore some of the diversions and the separations we find today, and recognize that the enemy of the people is not the other people in this room. I'd argue that the enemy of the people is not even in Washington, D.C. or Afghanistan or Iraq. The enemy of the people is our own apathy that allows people to use and abuse and frankly to pervert the greatest nation in the history of mankind. So I thank you for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And we're going to do some Q&A after this. But
One more speaker.
Oh, one more speaker. Well, then I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Again, I say, isn't it great to have great people around you? Wow. Now, Pastor John, would you like to say a few words? We're going for the best now. The agent of God is going to take us home.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Chuck said I had a couple minutes to speak, so I brought a couple of books I thought I'd read to you before you So I am the founder of Patriot Church in Sebastian, and we've been trying to get that word out as well. Also, I am a lifetime coach with Rick Green and Patriot Academy. That's been fun, finding new coaches as well for that. And just recently, I was elected chairman of the Indian River County Republican Executive Committee, which is a pretty big deal, right? So I just want to share some quick bullet points with you. I do have a 5-page lesson that I'd be happy to share with you through the email. It's called Liberty or Tyranny, and it talks about Convention of States, in particular Article 5 Convention of States being the remedy, right? The remedy for this, what ails us in our country. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's an organization out there that is totally opposed to what we're doing here. They call themselves Republicans, and some are Christians and so forth. But let me just share with you just a word. This book here is the Constitutional Convention, written, all the narrative notes and so forth from James Madison. And the first page, when I opened up the convention on Tuesday, this is from my granddaughter. She loves it. So anyway, I think that was a book. But this is from Tuesday, May 29th, when they called the convention in order. And what the big deal is this, that calling a convention of states is not calling a constitutional convention. Can we say that again one more time? Because that's one of the misinformation, the misnomers that other group is claiming that's going to take place. Calling a convention of states, Article 5 Convention of States, is not calling a constitutional convention. It's totally different. And here's why. It was on May 29th that the governor of Virginia, Edmund Randolph, took the floor to attack the Articles of Confederation. We already came to this meeting, right, back then, already understanding that we wanted to scrap the Articles of Confederation and start and begin with something new. We're not doing that with Convention of States, right? That is not going to happen with Convention of States. So he took the floor to attack the Articles of Confederation and introduce a series of resolutions for a new constitution. We're not asking for a new constitution, okay? That's a big deal. The mandate of the convention was only to revise and amend the articles from the Articles of Confederation, but the first person to speak stood up and set the record straight. Hey, we are scrapping the Articles of Confederation, and we're going to set up a new constitution. So he went ahead and did that, and he said this. He said that the mandate of the Convention of States was only to revise and amend the articles, but Randolph's resolution, known collectively as the Virginia Plan, would scrap them and substitute a strong national government with final authority over what had been semi-independent states. So that's one of the big deals, that there's a discrepancy between what everyone's calling the Convention of States and what that other group. You want to mention another group? Have you mentioned another group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so John Birch Society, right? John Birch Society. So they're against this. And I still can't, for the life of me, understand why. Can't understand why. And if you go back and look at what Ronald Reagan said about him, maybe you'd know. What was that? I'll tell you later? Okay, good. So that's the first main point. So if you can get that point across to people, that would help. And real quickly, in this, it's one of my Patriot Church messages, Liberty or Tyranny. Like I said, it's about 5 pages long, but I'll share that with you if you want a copy of it. But basically, the question was this: got remedy? So we have a sickness going on, federal overreach, no fiscal responsibility, no term limits. It's a sickness. We have a sick government. We call it the swamp, whatever we want to call it. It's sick. But there is a remedy. And our founding fathers had that foresight to say, wait a second, we need to make sure that we, the people, are still in control, because we, the people, are the ones who formed the federal government. It wasn't the other way around. So shouldn't we have the power? So we do have the power, and remember, we do have the power. So a remedy, of course, means to heal, to cure a disease. That's what a remedy is. And here's some thoughts about it. Out of our constitutional Constitutional Alive book, James Wilson, the signer of the Constitution, said this: the first and governing maxim in the interpretation of a statute is to discover the meaning of those who made it. That's step one, right? We have to put our feet back in their shoes, going back like we do with our Constitutional Alive videos and our Biblical Citizenship videos and our Convention of State videos, and see exactly what they were saying. And of course, this is a great book to do that, because this is the actual constitutional record. Here's some other thoughts. The Constitution, because we already read Article 5, so you guys already know what Article 5 says, so I'll skip that part. And then what else? In this book here, The Making of America, here's a great quote from there. The author, W. Cleon Skousen, he said that should the people of the states desire an amendment which the Congress will not pass, a constitution convention shall be convened upon the request of 2/3 of states' legislatures, and if 3/4 of the state legislature or state conventions afterward ratify any recommended changes, they shall become part of the Constitution. And also in this book here, The Making of America, the provision gives the people of the United States a right to use an alternative procedure for amending the Constitution without going through Congress. And you guys already know all that, right? Okay. Next part. It was the intent of the Founding Fathers in that book as well, Making of America, to provide this second method of amending the Constitution as a protection against hierarchy of power that might take over Washington and become a self-perpetuating demagoguery. Has that happened?
Yes, it
Right.
has.
Which the people could not control. Such a situation arises when an oligarchy of wealth or a structured power bloc gains control of these following areas. Here's the areas that he points out in the book. Tell me if we don't have control of these areas anymore. The leadership of both political parties, the majority of the Supreme Court, the majority of Congress, the White House, the media, and lastly, the major centers of education and intellectual opinion making. Right now, basically the only thing that we're hanging on by a thread is the majority, basically, of the Supreme Court right now. As long as they keep ruling by reading the Constitution and not interpreting the Constitution, we'll be fine. But it's too close. Now's the time, like everybody was saying. This is exactly for this moment in history. This is what this is for. What else? There's a lot of feelings and conjectures out there. Conjecture, like there's a general misunderstanding of Article 5, so we've got to be studied up. We've got to learn more. We've got to keep coming together like this and training ourselves up so we have the right message to get out there. There's that fear of a runaway convention. Again, that's not going to happen when you need 38 states to ratify it. That only leaves a handful of states that can just, 13 says no, right? They just say no and that's it. And then what else? Congress could refuse to call a convention. Well, no, they can't. Let me tell you real quick why. So here's some facts and truths. The states could call a convention to consider only a specific amendment so as to preclude from the risk of a runaway convention. So these are the ones we're talking about. Somebody brings up something else, it's null and void. We stop the convention, or we just continue to focus on these. So it's not going to be a runaway convention because it's not going to be a constitutional convention. We're not calling for a new constitution. We're talking about setting in these amendments to help with what the founding fathers originally talked about. Anything which is outside the convention, the issue would be ruled unlawful by the Supreme Court. Whatever the convention recommended would have to be approved by 3/4 of the state legislatures or conventions. The amendment convention could not impose something on the people that they did not approve. And that's another misinformation that's out there. Well, they're going to put in there something that we don't want. Well, then we vote no. But they can't, because this is what we're talking about. Here's one. Alexander Hamilton said this: there would be no danger in giving this power, Article 5 power, right, to the states, to the people, right, for a convention, as the people would finally decide the case. That's Alexander Hamilton. He also said that the Congress would be obliged on the application of legislatures of 2/3 of the states to call a convention for proposing amendments which shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the states or by conventions of 3/4 thereof. The words of this article are peremptory. The Congress shall call a convention. So they must do it. 34 states, it's not if it's going to happen, it's, like you said, when it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then they will call the convention. What's happened in the past, we've gotten close a couple times in history, but Congress said, well, we better get our act together, and they went ahead and called for the amendments and process, and so it wouldn't go to the states. But it could, and it's going to, because this is the only way that we can rein in the power from this swamp. Black's Law Dictionary, really good, something you really want to keep in mind as you're going forward. Some people, and again, John Birch Society again talks about, well, hey, you're going to rewrite the Constitution. Well, let me tell you what Black's Law Dictionary says, because they're probably number 2 or number 3 most quoted in our founding fathers. First was the Bible. Did you know that? Yeah. And then, of course, Black's Law. Here's what he said. He said, no amendment, this is a big deal, no amendment can alter a contract. An amendment can correct errors or add to the contract, but it cannot change the contract itself. So a real amendment is not supposed to change any of the foundational truth of our Constitution. But we have found that some amendments that have been passed in history have done just that. So therefore, all amendments of the Constitution that change the basic document are really null and void per the contract. In this other book, Saving the Constitution, the author here points out, Richard Proctor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He pulls out Amendment 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, 23, and 25. He said, all changed the original document. He says all those amendments are unconstitutional. Thank you. So last quote here. Abigail Adams said this. In 1775, John Adams wrote to his wife, and he said, a constitution government once changed from freedom can never be restored. Liberty once lost is lost forever. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Charles Yancey. He said, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. And lastly, on the bottom, scribed in Thomas Jefferson's monument, the title basin there, on the Washington's title basin, here's his quote. It says this: God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are a gift from God? He goes on, he says, indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever. Now's the time, everybody's saying it. It's the time to rise up, take back the power, and reset. You want to talk about a real reset? This is a real reset. Take our topsy-turvy world, turn it back right side up. Thank you. Amen.
Wow. We have some great speakers. Yes, sir.
I got something to say, Jim.
What do you want to say? Herb is D34 district captain. By the way, while Herb's coming up, can you guys stand up? Mary Rosanowski from District 31. Vicki Plumley from 32. Herb is 34. Did I miss anybody? No. Penny. How did I miss Penny? Penny is here, 33.
Okay,
With some great speakers. Go ahead, Herb. You want to use this?
you all found out. My name is Herbert Bone. I'm the local district captain from District 34. And I apologize. The way we started the meeting, there was something what was missed.
Yes.
And it is my fault. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. We usually start every meeting with a prayer and follow up with the pledge to the allegiance. So therefore, I now take the liberty to have that prayer, and we will say the pledge of allegiance. Praise, honor, and glory be to you, mighty God. Father, I know that we missed something this afternoon. And as we come now before you, Father, please give us your favor. We ask you that you forgive us all our shortcomings so we can come before you with a clean heart. Help us to do our best for the Convention of States. As we know, if we do our best, you will do the rest. I pray those things. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank you all.
Thank you, Herb. Well, that was an amazing meeting. A guy that didn't run it very well. There's so many great supporters. Wow. I'm a lucky guy. I'm lucky to be here, lucky to have friends and family and people like you to back me, as I got a little nervous in my presentation. But wow, what a good feeling at the end. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I'd like to see something else added in that gives the individual standing to handle, to attack constitutional violations.
Okay.
This is not a state-oriented one, but an individual-oriented one. Because there's almost every single thing that's been that could have challenged the corruption of the last 5 years has been kicked out of court due to lack of standing. And the reason why is because it's the individuals who are doing it. So we need to have something that adds to the individual rights to give the individual American standing in court for them to stand up for the
That's
Constitution.
probably federal overreach, when you say. That's part of the problem of federal overreach.
But that's federal overreach by the courts.
Yeah, exactly.
Does anybody know what standing is defined as, so that we can have a standing?
Well, we all have standing. We're all citizens of the country. We're registered voters as standings. We're all people of God as standings. We have standings, and we have the rights to those standings. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have that dictionary.
Sorry, not trying to interrupt,
No.
but with regards to the issue that you're talking about as far as establishing rules or new standings or processes, when we look at these three pillars here, which is the purpose of the convention, I think you probably think of 20 different amendments that might fall under there. And as we move forward and as we get closer, we would expect that the states would be addressing, what is the portfolio of ideas that they're going to bring forward. So some of the specific resolutions, some of the specific amendments we might be looking at, we talked about it has to be covered under these three pillars or it shouldn't be considered in the convention. But when you look at this, there are a significant number of individual amendments you might propose that would fall under this. Now, with regard to standing, that's a very different issue, and it has how the courts determine standing is probably something that none of us here are qualified to discuss. But the idea of standing in original jurisdiction and some of these other things are fundamental issues that do need to be addressed, and the use of standing as a way to bypass the people's right of redress is something that probably needs to be addressed. But I don't know that we're going to be able to get to a satisfactory answer here. Does that help at all?
Okay, well, I'm just saying, with your orientation toward this being a reassertion of states' rights, then it's almost like it's just shutting out the problems of individuals that face.
Absolutely, and the idea of ending federal overreach is a broad platform intentionally, because if you limit it too much, you're not going to be able to get to critical issues. But I would expect that the idea of some of those significant overreaches, both into the state's rights and the rights of the individual, should and will be addressed at any resultant convention.
I would just like to see more of an emphasis on the rights of the individual.
Understood.
Any other questions? Brian.
So I had a second one that just kind of slipped my mind, but the first one, though, I know, Chuck, you and I have spoken about it. The Parental Rights Amendment, as proposed by the Parental Rights Organization, it pretty much just simply says, hey, parents have rights over kids. That's like the short of it, right? And there's 5 sections. They actually have it on their website, parentalrights.org. Do you think that would possibly fall under federal overreach? I'm not sure if it would or not. I know it's really gaining steam nationally.
Yeah, I would say it falls into that for sure. And like we were discussing, there could be a lot of sub-amendments that will be discussed. They have to stay in the range of these 3 resolutions because it's written that way in every state resolution that's proposed to each state. Just these 3, otherwise it would get out of control. But that definitely fits under federal overreach. Yes, John.
The other question, I just remembered it. How will COS prevent hijackers from derailing this thing? Because any movement, like the big concern these days is like, how do we prevent so-and-so from derailing XYZ movement or organization?
Well, when you have, for example, there's already 19 states that agree that we have, we're onto something here.
Right.
So if you get up there with 34 states, you
It's
pretty much
different,
have, you have a power of the people right then and there.
Exactly.
I don't know how anybody can overpower that. We're too strong at that point. We're all united in a mission to stop federal overreach.
I agree, yeah, and it's always a question I ask myself, because there's different clubs and stuff I've helped run. I'm even this county's REC treasurer, and I think about that, even like maybe stuff like my news company or what have you. So I usually think about how do I make sure that a certain entity doesn't derail what I'm trying to do. So usually I have that in mind, but I think COS is really, from what I've observed, it's well grounded.
Yes, it is well grounded, well thought out.
Yeah.
It's a great organization. They have a team of executives and lawyers to make sure we stay in line with what we're doing. And there's always going to be, somebody that objects to something or another.
Oh, of course.
So we try to present our as best we can. And as you can see, I'm learning to do that, and I'm getting better at it. But when I sit around the table in a room with, as I learn to speak like this, but the fact is, if you believe in God, family, and country, the basis of our civilization in this time, like we say,
right,
a whole country was founded by those 3 things. We are here today because of our forefathers, and and our generations and my generation, and I'm here doing this for my grandkids because we don't want to leave them with what's going on now. We have to stop it. We have to make a move now. Now is the time for us to move.
When you go back to that map again, I'm surprised by a number of the states where there's no star there yet. Do you know what the status is in states like Montana and Idaho?
Yeah, they haven't gotten. We have people there. They haven't gotten it to committee yet. Some states.
There's activity going on.
There's activity in every state. Yes, they just haven't gotten to get to the committee to get it to the next step. And some of those states are hard.
Did you want an update on Montana since you mentioned that
Yeah,
specifically? So Montana actually just had a committee meeting last week, 2.5, 3-hour long committee meeting with public comment, both opposition and support for the resolution. They've got a joint resolution currently in process. They've wrapped up public discussion. My understanding is they're going to vote here in the next week or 2 about the passage of that. Once that resolution passes committee, it will have to go to both the Senate and the House for floor votes. I don't believe Montana's governor has to sign, but regardless, that one's moving quite quickly, and we understand that the support for Montana is pretty significant at this time. We expect some kind of action on that one shortly. I know it was Oklahoma. We also have, no, not Oklahoma, it was Kansas. We had action last week in Kansas. We're waiting on updates as far as what's currently going on in the legislature and the odds of passage and the actual date of any potential vote.
I have a question.
Yes.
Troy, can you clarify, you say it goes to committee and then to the House for a vote, and then from the House to the Senate? How does it get to committee? How many are in the committee? And are those committees made of residents?
Good question. You want to take it? Too many questions in one.
One at a time, Vicki.
Yeah, really.
So the way the process works is you've got within the House and the Senate, they have committees that they establish. Now the committees are the members of the committee are selected from within the legislature, and that committee has to discuss and debate and draft documentation relating to this. If it passes committee, meaning that group of senators or representatives are like, yeah, I think we can support this, and it's ready to move forward for a public vote or for a floor vote. After that, it goes to the House and the Senate, and they don't necessarily have to be the same time or different times. That's going to be a state legislature decision. Some of them with a joint resolution, you can hold the vote on the same day. Some of them you can actually vote in a joint session, and that's just not something you can answer, on a broad strokes case. But once it moves out of committee, which is a select group within the House and the Senate, that's saying that we believe it's sufficient and ready for a floor vote, which would be the final vote.
Okay, so what you're saying is a breakout committee in the House, they convene, they discuss, and then they move to the larger House for a vote. Then there's a breakout committee in the Senate, they convene, discuss, and they bring it to the larger Senate for a vote. And when it passes vote, then we have a passed application in that state.
Generally speaking, yes, with the exception of some states require the governor to sign off, just like any other bill. And again, that's state by state.
But it can be passed even without the governor.
Yes, they would have to override a governor's veto in those circumstances.
And if that can be done.
It can be done.
Thank you.
Okay, one more?
So like Pennsylvania had a Republican House and Senate, but a Democratic governor, and it's just about ready to go through. When they passed it originally, now they have a Republican.
And remember, this isn't a Republican versus Democrat thing, so there's actually numerous Democrats that wholeheartedly support this. They might want to see different amendments come out, but they understand the value and they recognize, because the idea that the government's out of control isn't something that my friends who are Democrats don't see. They see it and they say, holy crap, we've got to do something. And this is where the recognition of we the people beyond red and blue needs to occur.
Okay, we're getting short on time. One more?
Federal overreach accomplished by all the monies that are sprayed upon all the states, meaning that's how they gain control. So if the states decided not to get bribed,
Yeah, that would be, well, it's,
you know what I'm saying?
we've all become
Like,
complacent
how
at
are you
every
gonna
level.
stop that?
At every level, we've become complacent, you know?
When you want to get down to the brass
The
tacks,
school boards
that's-
are all getting funded from the NEA, from different associations. So what happens is,
Right, so-
that's why we have to stop that federal overreach, because that's exactly what's happening. You
Yeah,
know?
but then everybody's property taxes are gonna go to the moon. You know, and we'll have to, which, you know,
Yeah.
this is the
I
whole
understand what
deal.
you're
If
saying.
you don't stop that flow, how do you?
Hopefully,
stop?
we have to stop federal overreach, that'll stop the flow, right?
That essentially.
Okay, folks.
Yeah, and just one of the ways we've done it is reclaiming our 10th Amendment rights from our governor, from our state side, which our governor has started to do.
Right.
Push back on federal governments and stop allowing them. What's happened is we've given them power. We've
Right.
given up and given
Yeah,
them power.
just complacency and being used to, the people don't take the time to see what's going on in their local communities, and in their state legislators, and even in their local legislators, you know? That's why it's important to get out to the school boards, get out to your committee meetings,
Good.
Yes, George?
Yeah, so regarding what you just said, that people don't take the time, if anyone's available on the 31st of this month, I'm speaking before the county commissioners regarding the fentanyl and how this current administration has betrayed the American people by allowing China and the Mexican cartel to kill innocent people. So if you're available, October 31st, county commissioners. January.
Did everybody hear that? George Pullen, he's a addiction specialist. He's speaking on the 31st.
They're gonna give me an accurate time, but I'm an advocate. AM. Indian River County. Please, thank you, because
Everybody got that?
this goes along with your agenda.
Yes, of course. Thank you, George. Thank you for what you do, helping to save lives. Yes, one more, Herb.
I just want to read one more remark. We need to get the power back to the states. It does not belong to the federal government. Okay? And one of the big things is the 17th Amendment need to be repealed. Yeah. And the 17th Amendment, what was passed during Woodrow Wilson's reign as president in February in 1813 and 1812, Congress has passed an amendment that took the election of the senators away from the states and gave it to the people. With that action, the states have lost all their power in the federal government. Anthony Scalia said in 2012, before he died, with that action, the United States lost their federalism in the United States here. All the federal power is strictly now in federal government. There is no more power in the states. They completely have no representation in the states. And that needs to be changed.
Thank you, Herb. He's passionate about that, and it should be. We all should be. Hey, Bill. Yes.
First of all, Chuck, great job. And what you do is awesome. We have the greatest country in the history of mankind. It's a grand experiment. Can people govern themselves? And we're proven over time that we cannot govern ourselves. If you look at what's going on in Washington, if you look and see what's going on locally, say the school boards and those kinds of things, if you look at how people are not involved locally, you'll see why. You know, when there's a power vacuum, people will fill that vacuum, and that's what's happened. So I urge each and every one of you to look in the mirror and don't talk about it. Take some action, because this is the only way. The only way we're going to save this country is with a convention of states. There's no other way to do it. But we need local groups.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. All right, I won't forget that we have to pray our way out. I need all the prayers I can get, right, John? I am blessed, though. I am blessed to be here with this group.
Well, let's pray together. Lord, thank you for Chuck and his leadership, and we pray that you continue to pour out your wisdom upon us as we go from this place, that you would continue to burn a sacred fire within us, because this is a sacred cause, and this is our duty, you know, to get engaged, to take back this power that we have freely given. And this is not the original intent of our government. It's not the original intent of our founding fathers. So we pray that you would give us great wisdom these days ahead, that you would lead us and guide us, and that we would be able to bring others to this knowledge of this truth, and that you would get all the glory and honor and praise for it. So thank you for our time together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.